Now it's time for the best of the bunch. Folks, this week's best of the bunch can only be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a movie with an almost unforgivably stupid title that turned out to be brilliant. I remember this movie getting announced. I remember the trailers coming out for it. And certainly I had the question, do we need a cartoon Spider-Man movie? Like, what's the point of that? Like, we just start, like, so we had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and 2/3 of those were pretty great. And then we had the Andrew Garfield, right after Spider-Man 3, we rebooted Spider-Man right away for some reason to have Andrew Garfield in them. Why it wasn't just a continuation or whatever, I don't know. I never saw those movies. And then they decided after those two movies to reboot Spider-Man again, which I thought was too soon, but at least then we got the Tom Holland Marvel Universe Spider-Man, which I like quite a bit. So all right, we're chugging along. Homecoming was a good movie. Spidey was fun in Civil War. Spidey's back. I'm happy. Why do we need a cartoon Spider-Man movie? Well, the answer to that is because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is terrific. First off, the animation is unbelievably good. It is unlike anything you've ever seen before. And when was the last time you went to an animated movie and you got to say that? Something that was so perfectly stylized and also capable of combining what would seem to be divergent styles in a beautiful and artistic way. You know, how often do you get to see an animated movie that looks so unique and innovative? On top of that, it's a movie that has a story and themes worth telling. It's a movie that starts as an effective origin story for a different Spider-Man. In this case, Miles Morales, a young half African-American, half Hispanic-American kid who's very smart but doesn't quite fit in, and who his dad's a cop, but his uncle's a shadier character, and he's trying to figure out where he fits in the world when he gets them super spider powers. The movie, throughout that sequence, it is emotional and it's funny in a way that possibly none of the live-action Spider-Man movies, as successful as some of them have been quite able to capture. This is a movie that if you're a kid who loves Spider-Man, this is the one you've been waiting for. This is the one that has a character that you can really sympathize and empathize with on his journey to becoming Spider-Man. He's not a guy like Tobey Maguire who looks like he's in his 40s at all time becoming Spider-Man. And to be fair, we never really got that story with Tom Holland, the becoming Spider-Man. When we meet him, he just kind of is, which I think was a great idea for those movies. Those live-action movies did not need another Peter Parker become Spider-Man story, but it turns out the world did need the Miles Morales become Spider-Man movie. As the origin story is going along, the great trick of this movie is it becomes so much more, in that it becomes a treatise on the importance of diversity. The Spider-Verse of this movie revolves around that the MacGuffin of the movie, the big device, is this device that can open portals, if it works right, into alternate dimensions. One thing leads to another, and all of a sudden we have like these 6 other Spider-Men in our universe with Miles. And they are all Spider-Men who are much further along their paths. There's a standard Peter Parker Spider-Man who's kind of schlubby and isn't very good at being Spider-Man, who is kind of given up in his universe for a variety of reasons. There is Spider-Man Noir, as voiced by Nicolas Cage. He's like this film noir, mumbly, gritty, trench coat wearing Spider-Man. There is a young girl with a robot mech suit Spider-Man. There is Spider-Ham, which, let me tell you, folks, I never thought I would live to see the day that Spider-Ham, an obscure 80s funny animal character who is a pig that is Spider-Man, that he would ever be in a movie. Never imagined it in a million years. But here he is, and he's voiced by John Mulaney, and he's hilarious. You also have Spider-Gwen, or I think in this movie she's largely referred to by her proper name, Spider-Woman. This is if Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man's high school girlfriend, or rather Peter Parker's high school girlfriend, if she had become Spider-Man instead of Peter Parker. She's in this movie, she's a big part of it. And all these Spider characters are sort of teaching Miles, he's learning from them how to not only be a better Spider-Man, but with the overall underarching theme that I think is super important to today's young audiences of anyone can wear the mask. None of the characters in this movie are the Spider-Man because they are all Spider-Man. They are all equally capable and all equally Spider-Man. Spider-Man doesn't need to be Peter Parker. He can be Miles Morales. He can be Gwen Stacy. He can be a pig. It doesn't matter. Anybody can be Spider-Man. And that is a thing that I think has gotten lost somewhere along the way of these, sort of wish fulfillment characters, is that, this idea that Spider-Man is Peter Parker and Peter Parker is a particular kind of character. What Into the Spider-Verse is saying so perfectly, and what, I've been enjoying so much in a lot of movies recently, including like The Last Jedi, is that it's not about Peter Parker. Spider-Man can be anyone, and if you're a little kid from any background and you want to go out and you want to play Spider-Man, you have just as much a right to be Spider-Man as anybody else, and that's beautiful. I also really liked the way this movie portrayed Doc Ock. This was even, as much as I liked Spider-Man 2, which is one of the great superhero movies, this is probably a better Doc Ock. It's also probably a better Spider-Man movie. And it's a better Spider-Man movie because, again, it's about so much more. If you haven't seen Into the Spider-Verse, you really should. It is a heck of an experience. It is a movie that is, so big with so many great ideas and yet so perfectly and simply told. I mean, it really is a marvel. I'm giving Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 4.5 stars. And don't forget to visit our website, northmetrotv.com/everymovieever. There, you can watch reviews of every movie we've ever covered here on the show, as well as complete episodes. That's northmetrotv.com/everymovieever.